All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Affordable Housing Talks brought to you by the Athens Area Democratic Socialists of America and Athens for Everyone. I'm Erin Stacer, and our guest this evening is District 3 Commissioner Melissa Link. Thanks for being here, Melissa.
Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah. Well, shall we discuss housing then? The way that I've been doing this is having each commissioner thus far kind of describe in their own way the way that housing is right now, sort of the situation that we find ourselves in, which I know is kind of broad and general, so you can you can take that in whatever direction you want, but know that obviously we want to focus in on the affordability aspect. And then we can kind of talk about, if you want to, some of how things got to be this way. And most ideally, then we can talk about how we can fix these things or counteract them here in Athens. So if you don't mind giving us your kind of in your own words a way to describe the housing situation.
Well, we have several particular challenges here in Athens, and Athens, kind of what it is, as far as like a hub for cultural creativity, because we traditionally had very affordable housing. It was really cheap. That attracted that creative class. But that hasn't been the case for pushing 20 years now. So it can be fully attributed to the University of Georgia, the Hope Scholarship, the changing demographics of your university student. And that has definitely driven up home price, rent, apartment prices. It's driven this luxury student housing market. And, particular challenge implementing code changes that would be more conducive to more affordable housing, because you attract investors who are going to cater to students, who are going.
You're coming in and out a couple of times, so I was just seeing if it was going to fix itself.
Can you hear me? Should I put in some earbuds or something?
You can try that. That might help.
Okay. Let me just run and get some right in the other room.
No problem. Okay. Thanks for. I know there's always something, always some kind of technical issue, but this is also amazing technology that we get to use. And I'll just ramble about technology until Melissa comes back. Or I'll ramble about.
Okay, wait. I can't put in the earbuds because they're set up for my laptop.
Fantastic.
I mean, that's okay. My husband probably has some I can plug into my phone. Hold on one second.
You're coming in pretty clear at the moment.
Am I okay now? Maybe that, the wind was blowing weirdly when that happened.
Oh, that might have been it. Yeah, it sounded more like that because it was coming in and out inconsistently.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, should I start over about challenges?
Yeah, start again.
Okay. Well, we have particular challenges. Here comes the wind again. We have really particular challenges because of the university. As when the Hope Scholarship became implemented and UGA took steps towards becoming an elite institution and attracted a demographic of student that skews extremely wealthy. 60% of the student body is from the top 20% income bracket. In the meantime, your average salary in Athens is like 32 grand. Your median household income is like 45. These students come in with, seemingly endless pockets. And a lot of them come from the Atlanta area where housing is more expensive, and the idea of paying $1,000 a month for rent is no big deal. But that's completely untenable for a vast majority of people who live and work here. So that is the biggest challenge we have in this market-driven in the market. And of course, we know in a capitalist society, the market drives everything. And we also have challenges being a college town, and you know, we being reluctant to implement, you know, some of the code changes that other communities have implemented to increase the availability of affordable housing, particularly in single family neighborhoods, because you end up attracting that student demographic to that housing, and you know, it's not going to be affordable because they're going to cater to the market, and if they can get more money for it from a student rather than a, you know, someone working class. Not only that, but you know, there are real behavioral issues with a significant portion of the student body. I mean, I got 2 calls this week from African American, longtime African American residents, people who grew up here, and the students are, and these are 2 different people who didn't even know about that each other was calling me, but they had a lot to say about two 4-bedroom homes that have been built on their street, and all the problems that have come to the neighborhood since then. One of them was calling me initially about the clogged street drains from trash. And, you know, these kids are having parties and the trash is washing into the street drains and clogging up the street drains. It's backing up into the neighbors' lawns. You know, and then there's the parties themselves that keep these folks up all night. They're blocking their driveways. You know, and they've not made any attempt to be friendly or anything to the surrounding neighborhood. They've been nothing but a menace, and that seems to be the case over and over and over again. I mean, almost weekly I get a call like that. So, you know, we are, the mayor has appointed a committee that's supposed to look at our code, and look at, you know, possible changes to incorporate stuff like accessory dwelling units and, you know, duplexes in single family neighborhoods, the kind of things that are, you know, tailor made to get more affordable housing into neighborhoods and, you know, into desirable places. I mean, you don't want to just build affordable housing in places where people really don't want to live, and, you know, there's not much access to jobs and transportation and services. You know, you really want to try and fit this in to desirable places where people want to send their kids to school. But it's hard with the student population. It's really hard.
Right.
And we are also very much hindered by Georgia state law. Georgia has very strict property protection laws, you know, and inclusionary zoning is illegal. You know, we can't really like get, you know, incentivizing home ownership with public dollars is really difficult because of the gratuities clause. You know, the best we're able to do is pay for, you know, buy land and turn it over to affordable housing agencies like the Land Trust, Habitat for Humanity, the Housing Authority, or to, you know, we can help pay for the infrastructure, the streets and the stormwater, you know, sidewalks, those kind of things. And that's a lot. You know, part of the reason housing is expensive is because just the infrastructure to, you know, before you even put a single brick in the ground to start building a structure, you need all the things to get to it. You know, even just cutting a driveway to build a home is, you know, 10 or 12 grand. So I mean, and every little thing, you know, can, and also, labor, the cost of labor has gone up, which is a good thing. You know, we want people to get paid a decent wage for their work.
Right.
Um, but you know, the construction labor is scarce, and you know, the only reason they get paid a decent wage for their work is because it is scarce. You know, there is a shortage of people willing to do manual labor or skilled enough in those construction skills. You know, people who even just want to renovate their house, you know, or put in an extra bathroom or do something fairly minor often have to wait a year or two before they can pin down a contractor.
Right. Right.
So that's a challenge. You know, we are we're in a lot of ways, we're a fairly hyper educated community. You have a high degree of people who have like college and advanced degrees. But then we have this high poverty rate.
Right.
We have you know, plenty of traditional working poor folks who are multi-generational poverty, But there's a lot of people out there that are highly educated and making crappy money, myself included. um,
Mm.
so those are all our challenges. I mean, not all of them. There's many. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, well, for one thing, just terminology wise, just for anybody who's watching, and by the way, if you are watching, please feel free to ask questions in the comments. We totally love Melissa to be able to kind of interact with y'all. Um, can you describe what inclusionary zoning would be? It is, you said, illegal according to Georgia state law, but what would be good about that? Why would we want it?
Well, inclusionary zoning is when a community will mandate that if you're going to build new housing, a certain percentage of it has to be affordable. It has to be affordable for a certain level of income. Um, they've done it in Chapel Hill, and actually, I took a trip up to Chapel Hill soon after I got sworn in my first term back in like 2016 or whatever. Um, and a couple, Mayor Denson went at the time, and Brad Griffin, the head of the planning department, and we learned about their program. And developers, they're either required to build a certain percentage of affordable units, or they pay into a fund where affordable housing can be built elsewhere. And they had a partnership with their land trust, and so their land trust was using this other money to build single family homes as well as small apartment complexes. And Chapel Hill has the same challenges we do as far as the student population.
Right.
So, but Georgia state law prohibits that. It prohibits you telling developers what to. I mean, if it fits into the zoning, you cannot force them to build affordable. Um, there's there's include, but we're working on what would be an inclusionary housing policy, whereby if they want to go before the planning commission to request to build something that's outside the by right zoning laws, then it starts a negotiation process by which we're like, okay, sure, we'll upzone this property or we'll give you this variance if you include X number of affordable units. But it does demand a housing partner. It demands that partner to assure that those properties remain affordable into perpetuity, someone who's checking behind them to make sure that the tenants that are moving in meet those income requirements.
And there's not really anything like that at the moment.
Well, the land trust has been doing it kind of on a case by case basis for free. And
Oh,
we've kind of like finagled it here and there. I mean, the big project that got approved on Lexington Highway a month or so ago, which barely got approved, Mayor Gertz had to break a tie. I voted for it. And Mariah Parker was able to negotiate a big chunk of affordable housing for that. Um,
right.
but the people who live out there are furious. They're absolutely furious that we approved, an upzoning from a single family neighborhood to what would be, I think, multifamily 3, RM3, which allows 75 bedrooms per acre.
Oh, so
It isn't even that dense.
it's just a difference in what their expectation was about what would be around them.
Well, I
Basically.
mean, the thing is, in that part of town, there's very little opportunity for housing at all because the entire opposite side of Lexington Highway is airport and jail and police property. Um, and in the meantime, all the commercial in that area has dried up. The Piggly Wiggly shut down. It's a storage unit. The Lowe's can't sell their out parcels. There are 4 empty out parcels. There's several vacant, things have gone like dollar store, thrift store. Folks in that area complaining, why can't we get some, decent restaurants out here or a good grocery store? And, retail follows bedrooms,
Okay.
and it follows wealthy bedrooms, and those students have wealth. So the project we ended up approving, I think, has like 700 student bedrooms and 200 or 300 affordable housing bedrooms. It was a pretty good percentage.
That's pretty good.
And there's a couple commercial spots up front. It's I
As
mean, it's,
that's part of one of the kind of rules that we have, right? For
yeah, they wanted, I mean, all they could have been able to build in there were single family homes, a few dozen of them. Um, and, you know, they, I don't know what the land was selling for, but you know, these folks want money for their land, and you're not going to make a profit on a project, um, you know, unless you sell, and you know, on a single family housing project, unless you're selling luxury homes.
yeah,
Um, you know, and that's part of the problem is we're only is when it comes to single family housing, we're only seeing luxury. Um,
right.
you know, the land trust is, you know, the land trust and habitat are building these more affordable ones, and we've got a couple cottage courts coming in here and there, but even these cottage courts, you know, these are going to be $300,000 homes in
Right.
neighborhoods where typically you're getting $500,000 homes.
We do have a question from Caroline Aiken. It says, "What about the county buying the mall and making that a hub of housing and multi-use?"
The mall is not on the market. You know, a lot of this stuff
True.
is we can have our pipe dreams about what we want to see, but it's all, we can't force somebody to, you know, sell us their property. um you know, and you know, if it were up to Athens Clarke County to develop it, we'd need the money to buy it and the money to build it.
Right.
um we are, you know, the splost investment we're making in the redeveloping Bethel homes is huge. It's huge for this community. It's huge for a community of our size. You know, that kind of upfront public investment purely in affordable housing is a big deal.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I know it's going to be a big change. And, you know, you know, we complain about the big, giant, ugly student housing complexes downtown. This is going to be big and it's going to transform the cityscape, but it's going to be for normal people.
Right. And there's a certain amount where that is out of our hands, it seems like, to some degree, especially given the power that developers have.
Yeah. Oh, very much out of our hands. And, you know, we have, you know, these property laws in the state, you know, do kind of tie our hands with a lot of things.
It's very true. I do. I was thinking back when the TADs first came out. I was looking at a map, and it looked like there were several TAD sections, I guess, around the mall. I know that's not your district, but um, that did look like at least there could be some fairer type development there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like it's inevitable the mall is going to get redeveloped. And when you're dealing with a TAD, part of the goal is to encourage that private redevelopment, encourage profitable private redevelopment that'll jack up the property values and bring in those tax dollars. And then you use those tax dollars for public development, public investment, whether it's in, you know, great infrastructure like streets and sidewalks or a park or the infrastructure for housing.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, you don't want to just encourage affordable housing in a TAD. You want to encourage the kind of development that does bring in higher property values and those tax dollars too, so that you can actually afford that investment. Um,
Very.
so the mall, I mean, I can tell you my pipe dream for the mall. I would love to see a water park there. Think about I mean, the revenue that that would bring in, the college kids would love it. People would come from all over North Georgia to go to it. And, you know, the value of that property would go through the roof. Um,
Hmm.
and I think it would spur some other desirable development around the mall. You know, all the restaurants and housing, and um, we'd get some decent transportation out there. Um, but you know, challenges to the mall, you know, there are challenges to that corridor having to do with the road itself and
Right.
GDOT controlled road. So you know, any improvements to that road are GDOT controlled, and they do have plans to improve the stretch from the Timothy intersection to the mall, and they're supposed to put in the proper bike and ped infrastructure along the way. But it's going to be a huge project and an expensive project because I think they're going to have to acquire some of the properties because, you know, in order to widen them. And so there are big changes coming out there, but you know, nothing moves quickly.
Can you describe what GDOT is?
Oh, Georgia Department of Transportation.
So it's
And
state.
yeah, and Atlanta Highway, West Broad Street, Lexington Highway, and Prince Avenue are all state highways. So we can't just go in there and do what we want with those streets. There's a small segment of Prince Avenue that is, we did petition for local control of it, I don't know, 20 years ago probably. So we do control just that little inner part of Prince Avenue from Millage Avenue to downtown.
Huh. Well, that's good to know. It's sort of along the lines of Caroline's question, though, there, and we've spoken with some of the other commissioners about this, that the county is thinking about potentially buying up some land in order to sort of circumvent the gratuities clause, to help provide housing. Have you?
Well, I mean, we can buy land and turn it over um, to a certified housing partner.
Mhm.
And we have the three. We have the Housing Authority, Habitat, and the Land Trust. So there are those three, charities that can build the housing, and they go through, and they have federal requirements and processes that they have to go through to maintain that housing partner status. It is a
Mhm.
federally designated status through HUD, Housing and Urban Development. But yeah, if we had the money, but the local government is not in the development business. It's not in the business of, being a landlord. we're gonna have, we could, if we had the money and wanted to hire a whole staff to do that, but we have these partners that are able to do that and have a long history of doing it and doing it successfully.
Graham sent us a question that says, "Can you use some of that 60 mil from the federal government for that?"
Yes, actually, I just sat in on a webinar earlier this week, a really great one. And I'll share the link with you. They're supposed to be sending me the presentation. This might be helpful for y'all.
Yeah.
It was a Rethinking Homelessness webinar, and it talked about how flexible those new Fed dollars are going to be for us when
Great.
to homelessness and affordable housing. There's a pretty significant amount of flexibility. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing with that money and figuring out how we can solve our homelessness crisis, and
Mm-hmm.
how we can incentivize some affordable housing. And our homelessness crisis has really, really exacerbated in the past decade or so, and in the pandemic even more so. And I've been bugging about it for months and months. We were supposed to have a work session on it last March, and it was canceled. And it wasn't canceled because of the pandemic. It was canceled before the pandemic actually hit, and it was never rescheduled. So every month I'm bugging for this affordable housing work session that we have yet to have scheduled, or
Yeah.
a homelessness work session.
So that's a pretty large chunk of money that to, like you said, to kind of play around with. But that would be another thing where you would have to sort of partner with either the land trust or HUD or something in order to.
Well, yeah, when it comes to the actual development, it wouldn't be efficient for Athens Clarke County to kind of reinvent itself and figure out, how to develop affordable housing when you've got these partners who are in that business.
Gotcha. There isn't an entity at the moment within the government to do that.
Yeah, our housing and community development department, they're more in the business of transferring those federal dollars to those other agencies. The local government becomes the pass-through entity to those housing partners when it comes to HUD dollars and CBDG dollars.
Okay. I wanted. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
I don't think so.
Sorry. I thought I heard a. I was going to circle back to the working poor that you mentioned, because we like to emphasize that people in Athens have jobs. We have very, very low unemployment rate, but just really, really low wages. And so this being very related to affordable housing, because certainly housing would be more affordable if you had higher wages. What are some of the tactics that um, that you all are working on up at City Hall?
I mean, there's not much we can do. The
Um,
government prohibits us from setting our own minimum wage. I mean, the state minimum wage is below the federal minimum wage. It's become quite obvious that, the Republicans in state government have absolutely no interest in doing anything that actually benefits normal people. They do not return our phone calls from on the commission. They won't even consider, the request for legislation that we do present to them. Basic crap like, allowing our police to run radar on certain roads so we can deal with speeding problems. I mean, basic stuff that helps people, much less, providing housing for poor people.
mm,
I mean, we all know where they come from. They've told us who they are. I mean, this week is a clear example of that. And, I'm getting indications that they're inflicting active harm upon this community because they don't like our politics.
yeah, we feel quite targeted specifically.
Well,
And,
yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's real. I'm hearing it from people in the know that, yes, they're being very deliberate in inflicting harm upon this community.
we got a lot of work to do. But as far as I know, so there's a lot of things where your hands are tied. But as far as encouraging, I guess, other employers, there's the possibility maybe of how much y'all pay county workers, and I don't know, in what are the best ways for y'all to
we have
union friendly.
Yeah, we have a living wage policy to ensure that, our lowest paid workers do meet the living wage standard according to the MIT. There's an MIT calculator that is updated regularly and calculates the cost of living in a community and what an appropriate living wage is for that. So, the county itself, just a few years ago, we made that commitment. The big problem is UGA. UGA, and it's not, manual labor, just manual laborers and food service workers that are making these crappy minimum wages. People who are highly educated and who have worked in the university for 10, 20 years in office jobs with master's degrees. I mean, I make what amounts to about $12.50 an hour. And I've been at my job 14 years running a peer review journal and doing communications and web updates for a department. And I worked for the university for 3 years before that. So a huge problem is UGA being the region's largest employer, but just having dismal wages. But they do have an elite slice at the top who make ridiculous money.
Jerry Moorhead makes almost what, $800,000 a year.
Well, not to mention anybody who's in the athletic department, and any coaches or all the people over there, and your tenured professors make 150, 200 grand, which they're highly educated, and and it takes a long time to get tenure. I can certainly empathize with that, but you have a pile of administrators over there, and they keep adding more. In the meantime, a huge chunk of their workers are making minimum wage or barely what's considered a living wage. I mean, if UGA were to go to $15 an hour, we had a $15 an hour raise. Like like the Democrats tried to put into that stimulus bill.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know me myself, I'd have several thousand more dollars in my pocket every year.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the documentary Below Baldwin,
Uh-huh.
But they mentioned that the large majority of the people who keep that facility running
Yep.
are the Black and brown folks that live here.
I mean, it's kind of institutionalized serfdom, quite frankly.
Absolutely, yeah. But there is also the way in which y'all can, or at least attempt to ask for wage floors. Is that's something that some of the other commissioners have mentioned?
we have when in economic development, when a company comes here and says, we want to put our factory here or our call center here, what can you do for us to incentivize it? And then negotiations come on, like with Wayfair, they came in, and it all happened with the economic development department. The commission itself wasn't involved, but we approved the final plan, the final agreement. And I forget what the incentives were. I can't even remember what the incentives were. Sometimes in most communities, traditionally it's land. But they came in with a base salary, and I forget, 30 something $1,000. And so they come in saying, this is what our wages are going to be, this is our base salary, this is our floor salary. So there are those complex negotiations, and every project is different,
Mm-hmm.
so they come in at different, different gives and takes. I mean, like Creature Comforts was expanding, and we assisted them by having Athens Clarke County buy their tanks. No, it was Terrapin. Terrapin was expanding. Athens Clarke County bought their tanks. They needed that upfront investment to pay for these very expensive pieces of equipment, but they were expanding their number of employees, and we negotiated an appropriate wage for those employees. So yeah, Athens Clarke County owns a few giant beer tanks.
Little unpacked.
The people of Athens own those beer tanks.
Beautiful.
Public
beer.
We got some good paying jobs out of it.
Yeah, I hear that those are pretty good. As far as again negotiating, I guess, with these businesses as they come, you said at first they're dealing with the economic development. Is it a board or
our economic development department? We have
department?
a department, a director. Ilka McConnell is the director. So yeah, I mean, they do it through staff, and most communities have that. They have economic development departments, and they're the ones that try and lure new businesses, do the negotiations when it comes to incentives and and community benefits. So
Always curious, like who those people are and like what their backgrounds are.
I mean, it might be helpful for A4E to do an interview with our economic development director and hear about all the programs that Athens Clarke County is involved in, trying to score living wage jobs for people. We put a lot of investment in, training, especially when it comes to people who are coming out of prison or tech-oriented jobs. We help we help with Goodwill's welding. They do a welding training program, which if you get a job as a welder, you're making bank. I have friends who went to art school and were sculpture majors who then ended up getting certified as welders, and they're doing pretty good for themselves.
Hey, that works. Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion. Thanks. Maybe we'll do them next in a series. Interview the economic development. Okay. Well, we're coming up here on about 30 minutes. How are you feeling as far as doing good? Great. Yeah, I wanted to also go back to when we were talking about student housing. I know UGA is about to have thousands of more students. They're increasing their enrollment. And they're not, as I understand it, increasing their housing.
Nope.
So
I asked about that 6 years ago. We used to meet with UGA administrators every year. When I first got on the commission, that was the first question I asked. And they said, no, we have no plans for new dorms. They have not invited the commission to have one of those sit-down dinners since Mayor Gertz, since the new commission has come on.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, typically they're in February. So yeah, 2 years they didn't invite us. Came on before 3 years now. Came on before the pandemic. We should have had one. That first year under Mayor Gertz, we should have had one. I could see how we couldn't have one this year, but yeah. So
You get one excuse, UGA.
yeah, they're not interested in speaking with this commission about our interests.
I'm not surprised, but so we have these students, they're coming. Into your mind, what is the best way to try and house them? What are we going to do with them?
I mean, the ideal thing would be for the university to house its own damn students, at least when they're, their first couple years. They've got hundreds and hundreds of acres they own that is just sitting there blank. I mean, there's all this property on South Millage Avenue that could be housing. They wouldn't even let us put our cooperative extension building there, even though we're in partnership with UGA in the cooperative extension office. They wouldn't. Instead, we put it out behind the mall. So we had to share a lot with a fire station. So yeah, I mean, they should be building housing for their own students. Students like to live together, I mean, in the same area together. And there are parts of town where if UGA were to build some student housing, it could have some, trickle down benefits as far as like commercial development in the immediate area. And it would relieve the pressure off our in-town neighborhoods, which are overwhelmed with students who are driving regular working class folks out of neighborhoods, making life miserable for a lot of people.
I was wondering why. I mean, there's a kind of usual cycle in the conversation that I see for people when a new student oriented housing is being built. There's a lot of groaning about that, but it's like the students are coming, they have to go somewhere, right? And we don't necessarily, those of us that are living here, this is the town that we either chose to live in or we grew up here, or if you don't necessarily want college students in your neighborhood, what is the best way that we can divert them to?
Yeah, and not all students are bad. I mean, I know I trash talk them, but I've lived next door to plenty of students that are fine. But we do have, silly rules to keep their behavior in check. They don't always get well enforced. Our police officers don't seem to be very interested in enforcing some of them. And we have this silly single family housing ordinance where no more than two unrelated people are allowed to live under the same roof. I'm having a visitor. Under the same roof when in a single family neighborhood, which is stupid and it's draconian and unjust, but it's the only tool we have to kind of control student housing in some of our neighborhoods. And plenty of folks, I mean, I lived breaking that rule my first 10 or 15 years in my house. Mm. Until my husband and I were married, we couldn't, we had an extra roommate. Hey June, hold on one second. Hey June, I'm on a call. Can you guys go somewhere? Sorry. My neighbor came over to play with my dog.
Oh.
Hold on a second. I'm on a call, Josh. Will you go knock on the door and ask Charles? I'm in a meeting. I'm on a call in a meeting. Okay. I'm being interviewed, so it's live.
You're on.
So where was I? Oh, I was talking about the single family housing ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what tools do we have to kind of help control this behavior and keep some of our single family housing open for regular working people? Because it's not just the students, it's the market that it drives up, the cost of the housing, because they come in able to pay $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a bedroom.
Right.
When most families, that's all they can afford for a mortgage.
So if there was more student housing like these larger apartment buildings, would we be able to sort of create that space where then these houses would open up to regular folks?
That's part of the idea, is that, if you're able to build those, and that was part of the reason I supported that project out on Lexington Highway, which is only 2 miles from campus. And we're supposed to be putting in a mixed use path on that area so they could theoretically ride their bike to campus quite easily. The buses go out there. I supported it because those 700 or 800 student bedrooms are 700 or 800 student bedrooms that are not going to go downtown, which is overwhelmed with students, and those 700 or 800 students that are not going to end up in East Athens or Hancock, or even other single family neighborhoods that students are starting to move into. So it's it would be nice if the university were helping us out here by building their own student housing on university land, but then again, we get the tax benefits from the development of that land. So those tax benefits are going to go into the TAD there and probably help pay for that mixed use path.
Well, James asks a good question. He says, is there any way we can put pressure on UGA to address some of these issues?
They don't seem interested in any kind of, we don't have any cards to play. There's really no way we can put pressure on them. They don't have to abide by our planning and zoning laws. They don't pay taxes. There's not a whole hell of a lot we have.
So UGA has a lot of power in the town.
Yep. About the only things that we do have some sway over are like stormwater fees and utility fees, like water bills.
Given that their institution is the reason that we're having a large influx of people, could they not somehow help us out with infrastructure upkeep? And I think they do to some degree already, right? Isn't there some?
We have some of the roads that run through UGA are mostly ACC maintained roads.
I wasn't sure if there was some percentage they have to pay of like.
They pay stormwater fees and they pay water bills.
Well,
I think they even get a discount on that, quite frankly.
Why?
There is a formula, a formula for discounted water for industry and institution. And I don't know the full details of it, but I feel like that would be the only card we'd have to play, is jacking up water bills and store. But they'd probably take us to court saying we were treating them unfairly, and I think that's probably why we haven't even thought about these things, because UGA also has the state legislature at their beck and call, and if we were to pull any of this stuff, they'd probably create a new law that would even dump more crap on us.
Not a whole lot of leverage there.
Yep.
So it sounds like the best possible thing, really, that the commission could even, or the chess move y'all have really in this instance, sounds like allowing or incentivizing developers to build certain kinds of things and geared towards students, so that the student population can be diverted into those large structures. And again, not to demonize students, but just to recognize that a lot of them have a very different kind of life and income, and not all of them. But yeah, the working class people here are getting pushed out because housing is being geared toward them.
Yeah. And there's also the whole generational wealth thing. That's something I want to touch on, because that's a huge challenge. I know personally the only reason I was able to buy my house almost 20 years ago was because my parents were able to co-sign for it, co-sign for the loan, because they had property that had been passed down to them, and my grandparents used used military, post World War II. They, both my grandmother and my grandfather on my mom's side were in the Navy, and my grandfather on my dad's side was in the Navy in World War II. Got yanked from the Pacific when his ship was sunk. But they, the military had those GI Bill loans, and
Right.
people were able to buy homes, and there was that
If you
huge,
were white.
white people.
If you were white.
Um, and so, my grandmother and grandfather bought a graystone in Brooklyn. People were leaving Brooklyn to go move to Long Island in upstate New York out to the burbs. So, it was kind of cheap to move to Brooklyn to these beautiful Victorian graystones and brownstones. And, I think they bought their 3-story home for like 12 grand and had 7 kids. And, by the time my grandmother passed away, it was worth over $2 million. And I just checked it on Zillow this morning, and it's now worth like $5 million. And,
God.
and that's like, I mean, some of my cousins went to really nice liberal arts colleges, and I'm sure it had everything to do with the fact that they got a portion of that $2 million that got when my grandmother's house sold.
Right.
So it's, and if your family doesn't have that, and also like federal housing loans, you can't qualify for them if the house isn't in perfect shape. So, I mean, I wanted to buy this dinky little fallen in mill cottage in Boulevard, knowing that the neighborhood was only going to appreciate, despite the fact that my house was in crappy shape, but I couldn't get a loan on my own for it. And it wasn't because I couldn't afford the mortgage, but it was because nobody wanted to insure, and they didn't want to give me a mortgage unless I already had capital, because the house wasn't in perfect shape. They knew it would need maintenance and upkeep, and it needed work on the front end. So even that idea of moving into kind of a fallen in little house and gradually doing the work and fixing it up over the years, that's not available to you unless you have capital already on the front end.
Right.
And my parents were able to co-sign for that loan that guarantee, that made me able to do that. But otherwise, I probably would have had to get, a house out in the burbs somewhere that was newer. And there aren't many, 2-bedroom homes out in the burbs. These smaller, modest homes are just, that's not what's built these days.
No.
It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath or nothing.
Oh, we have a comment from Graham that says, in my neighborhood, there are at least 10 large houses with a dozen more popping up. None of them have only 2 residents.
What neighborhood is it?
Can't snitch. Can't be snitching.
It's probably a single family neighborhood, and yeah, if they're not all related, it is technically illegal.
We do have, and we have this other comment. I was distracted and not looking at the comments, but now they're popping up. The Lexington Road project will house approximately 1% of the population of ACC. Do you see where another 15 or so of these will go in the next 20 years to accommodate all the folks who are coming? Single-family homes will not fill the void.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question. Like, where do we want to locate it, this hyper dense housing? Because the only place that's zoned for it is downtown. I guess in like River, some of the places where it already exists that were zoned for student housing 20, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're going to have to really reconsider our zoning, or, consider these things on a case by case basis. And, I mean, I felt like, and I feel like it's not appropriate to build super dense housing out in the boondocks where people can't catch a bus, can't easily get to a grocery store. There are no jobs around. I felt like that Lexington Highway project was really well located for that kind of housing. So you want to consider location. I mean, location is the first word in real estate, any kind of real estate. So, you really have to, consider location, and consider, you do want to consider the surrounding neighborhoods. I felt like this project on Lexington in the long run is not going to have a terrible impact on the neighbor next door, because it doesn't even share a road with them.
Hmm.
Not only that, but the project is putting in a stoplight, which will only improve things for folks in those other neighborhoods as far as getting in and out on Lexington Highway and calming the traffic. People speed on that section of Lexington Highway terribly.
Definitely. Yeah. And is there anywhere else right now that is really being considered for more high density housing?
I mean, I haven't heard of anything. But these things, usually when these things are being considered, there's like front end conversations going on in the planning department, or the commissioner for that district directly early on the front end. Or even sometimes they'll reach out to several commissioners. The developers in Lexington Highway, they did reach out to me a year or more ago, um, because they knew that I had concerns about affordable housing. And when they said they wanted to do this project and they wanted to ask for an upzone, I was like, you better include affordable housing. We do
Yeah.
need affordable housing. And they spoke with Commissioner Parker for the rest of it, and there were quite a few gets out of that.
Yeah, it sounded like a not a terrible deal in the end. Um, and hopefully, kind of similar to the way it can be done going forward. If more, I guess, ways of ensuring that these things can be continued
Yeah.
can be
I mean,
done.
I think if we had a set policy for how these negotiations go, it would be a lot easier, because the developers would come in knowing what to expect, knowing what the process was, knowing the kinds of things they would be expected to offer, and knowing the kinds of things that Athens would be willing to allow them. And knowing qualifications for appropriate locations, things like that. I think I think in a way in many ways they do need to be considered on a case by case basis. But if there were just some clear parameters on how the process should go, it would make things a lot easier for everyone.
Do you see some of those policies being potentially worked on at the moment? Like you
Yeah,
mentioned, the mayor has a committee
yeah.
considering things.
This and Tim Denson and Mariah Parker are on the committee, and it includes members of representatives from the Land Trust and Habitat, Housing Partners. It's kind of come out of this Georgia Initiative for Community Housing Committee that wrapped up a couple years ago.
Hmm.
But it's kind of reformed out of that committee, with Commissioner Parker and Denson on it. So they're going to be tasked with um, developing this inclusionary housing policy. And I think they're also going to be looking at some of the recommendations that the Planning Commission brought forward in a report last year, for code changes like accessory dwelling units, i.e. tiny homes, and things like that.
And I've heard a lot about the want in Athens from several people who really want tiny homes. So where would those kinds of things go?
I mean, they could go in your backyard. They can go about a half an acre of open land in Boulevard, my carport got crushed a couple of years ago by a pecan tree, and my husband are like, yeah, we would love to build an accessory dwelling unit in our backyard, and right now we're just with the detritus of our carport and our junk out open and exposed, because I'm like, I'm gonna wait for these rules to change. um I honestly, I'd love to just move into the tiny home and rent my house out. That's the retirement plan. um
Simple.
but we live a block from Chase Street Elementary. It would be a lovely place for a single mom and her kid to live affordably.
Mac wants to keep pushing. He says,
It's gonna happen. I mean, it's gonna happen. It's just that these things do not. They take time, and quite frankly, the pandemic has really set a lot of things back, because it's really hard to develop brand new policies and start up a brand new committee when you can't even meet in the same room together.
very true. We have We have Mac who says he wants to keep pushing. He says, I'm not sure. I see 15 more 40-acre parcels with sewer connections that can be developed.
Yep, those might be ideal locations, if they're not far from, if you're going to build student housing, you definitely want it to be pretty close to campus.
I think he's saying he doesn't see them.
Oh, he doesn't see
I don't see those.
Oh, you don't see those? I mean, some stuff might need to be redeveloped, some strip malls out there and big box stores. To me, those are ideal places for redevelopment rather than like scraping some woodlands, which is what's happening on Lexington Highway. I think the worst part of that project is, we're going to lose this beautiful forest.
I'm curious. Yeah, Max brought up a lot, especially seems to be very concerned about sewer connections, which I appreciate because I know
that's important.
That's very important.
Very, very important.
Extremely
Never
important.
underestimate the importance of your sewers.
How far out does our sewer connection go? I guess it's different in different districts, maybe, but
yeah, and I don't have a sewer map in front of me. Like it does go pretty far up North Avenue. And definitely down Lexington Highway. But yeah, you do need that sewer connection, especially if you're going to build really dense housing.
Right.
You need a wider line. And the last thing by right, you can build single family homes without sewer connections, but they have to be on half-acre lots where they can put a septic tank in. And then you need to cross your fingers and hope people maintain that septic tank so it doesn't collapse in 25 years, which is what is happening in lots of neighborhoods all over Athens. And the state, it's one of those state legislators' requests that we've made to the legislation is to allow us to be able to regulate septic systems. And they're not even talking about that. But in the meantime, you have septic tanks collapsing and like literal crap flowing into their neighbors' yards. And it's a public health hazard.
Wow. Well, there's a campaign promise from Republicans.
Stop the crap, please.
Stop the crap. Melissa, we're almost right at an hour. And I appreciate everybody who made comments. I'm sorry I didn't totally keep up with everything, so I hope I didn't totally miss a bunch of them. But also, shout out Graham. Yes, thank you for saying we have a responsibility to supplement those dollars to care for our neighbors. There's a lot of things we could do with a lot of money that's sometimes we just don't do them.
I want to ask you guys to, as this new stimulus money comes in, please pay attention and hold us accountable, hold our feet to the fire about how we spend it. Because from what I understand, there is significant flexibility in it, way more flexibility than what was given to us under the Trump administration. Way more money.
Would this particular chunk of money be considered within a part of the upcoming budget, or is this extra or different somehow?
It would be different. It would be outside. Well, actually, we did kind of mention how we could make up for things in our budget by, using CARES funds or the stimulus funds to cover budgetary expenses that would then save us money and allow us to do other things in our budget. Like we can't use stimulus money to pay salaries or create a new position. But we could use it for certain infrastructure that would normally be paid out of this budget, and that would save us money where we could create a position or, do other things within the budget. So yeah, there is that kind of, and we do that with SPLOST too sometimes. So there is that opportunity. But, there's also the opportunity to just do extraneous projects outside the budget.
Now is the time, though, right? Since y'all are discussing the budget, to come and talk.
Yeah, well, the budget it's going to drop in a couple weeks. It's pretty much wrapped up, from what there's not a whole lot of time to work big, giant new things into that budget. But, you can also do budget amendments throughout the year. So there's always that.
There is that. And as I recall, there was a lot of last minute budget, at least arguments, if not.
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah. Hopefully we won't have to go through that again. It was very stressful considering we also had a pandemic we were trying to figure out, and the governor opened everything up when yeah, so but the money's coming, and from what I understand, it is flexible, and I'm certainly speaking up on the front end about these homelessness and housing issues that we see a lot of. And those are expensive things.
Yeah.
Building stuff is expensive, and that's why. But if we have these big chunks of money up front, you don't even have to think about borrowing for it. It could really incentivize us to do some transformative projects.
I hope so. There are so many people who need it so badly. And as you mentioned, things were bad before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it just got worse. But I appreciate you taking time to talk with us, Melissa, and telling us all to hold your feet to the fire. We will do that. And thanks, everybody, for commenting. And we'll have one more of these affordable housing talks, at least so far, in our lineup on Friday with Commissioner Jesse Houle at 6:30. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.